All right, we back. Some crazy topics, yo. It's some crazy topics. These ones are real sensitive. I'm surprised I haven't started sweating yet. Man, sensitive topics because, you know, this has to do with close friends and family.
You say you haven't sweated yet?
Yeah, I haven't started sweating yet, man.
Okay, boom. I'm gonna go into this quick. Mos Def made a quote and said, hip hop was never supposed to be pop culture, you know, meaning that hip hop was never supposed to be sold to the mainstream. It was supposed to be lived and experienced. It was a thing that helped people survive in the environments that they lived in. Matter of fact, it made them prosper because they had something that they can look forward to day by day. You look at some of the early jazz musicians, a lot of those dudes did not want to be recorded. A lot of those dudes did not want to be filmed or documented, you know? Reason why is because to them, it wasn't culture to be sold. It wasn't something to teach to another group of people somewhere else, whether it's black, white, yellow, brown, whatever, because it's just something that they were experiencing here. For you to get it, you have to experience it here through entertainment and through, Hollywood and America and how people make a living off of taking things that come from their culture and putting it out into the mainstream. We've generated this custom where when we create something, we need to make it for everybody. So we just go out and share it. And this is something, if you want to talk about like nations, this is something that's very prominent in the black culture. We create a new dance and now everybody got to do it, because we put it out there. We don't keep our things secret. But then we wonder why it gets appropriated so easily, or why when it gets appropriated, we feel so hurt. Well, if I just do this dance like this and I post it on Instagram and then a white person does it and then they make millions and they start teaching it, hey, you can look at that two ways. You can say, damn, well, maybe he should have kept that to himself and, just built a culture generating that. Or maybe you can say, hey, look how strong my influence is. That a simple gesture for me can generate millions for another. So imagine what I can do for myself. Um, when it comes to these street dance cultures, me personally, especially when it comes to like the topic of life feed, I oftentimes don't teach like the social dance aspects of life feed. And not because I can't teach them, not because I can't share them. I'd more than will be willing to share that information. But in a workshop setting, I just never got the vibe of teaching those kind of movements. One, if I don't see no purpose to, but two, because I experienced those things and I did those things in a setting and in a community of people that understood them. So when I tone wop, everybody knew, yo, he's tone wopping. To teach that to many different nations, to me, I just don't see my culture as a product in that way to sell it in that fashion. Now, my movement arts, when I went from just being a social dancer to somebody who's skilled in the art of movement that people would want to learn or share it, I'm willing to share that too, but I'm not out here like, yo, my name is Ki-nen. This is the footwork Ki-nen style, blah, blah, blah. You can download this class for 59.99. Like, and much love to people that do that, because that's how they make their money. But for me as somebody in culture, I've never gotten to the point where I felt like I needed to do that. And I've always kind of felt uncomfortable with doing that. Now, will I end up doing that in the future? Who knows, But as of right now, that's how I feel. And I've always felt that way because I felt like when I look at the cultures like a Haka dance or like, certain things that have that strength to them. When you see Haka dance, and I reference Haka dance because it's something to me that stands the test of time, but it's something that you don't see on a mainstream because they didn't advertise it that way. Anytime you've seen somebody record a Haka dance, anything, it's done in ceremony. It's done in ritual to something. And I always looked at like life feed as that for me. So for me to be able to share my experiences with somebody where they can feel that same thing, well, that person would have to now pay me in time. How long are you going to spend to actually dive into this with me? And then once you go through that journey, when you come back out, when you tone wop, you're going to feel that tone wop. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
if you go teach that tone wop somewhere, that's your business because you took the time. Now, for me personally, I won't sit here and be like, damn, you should have never taught this, blah, 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 blah. Because 9 times out of 10, if somebody dedicated 10 years to learning a tone wop, They ain't gonna teach that shit.
Yeah.
Somebody dedicated 10 years to any kind of dance, whatever. They're not gonna come out of that 10 years and just sitting and living in a culture and be like, I'm gonna go teach this somewhere. Cause
Yeah.
you would have done figured your life, you'd have contemplated so many things with your life by that time. You know what I mean? A lot of Buddhist monks, you can't even leave certain parts of Cambodia and teach Buddhism other places because you have to actually stay on that landmass and study Buddhism for a number of reigns. They call years reigns. Yeah, it's been there for like 5 years before you can even leave and talk about it. 10 years if you wanted to be a certified teacher. So there's a lot of cultures outside of America that when it comes to their culture, you pay in time. Martial arts, you pay in time. You can't just get a punch and then go teach martial arts because there are people that pay in time and it shows. But then people say, well, martial arts is physical and the results come by the intention of the fighter. Dance is expression. Well, okay, whatever. Let's deal with dance then. You can't teach Haka dance because you'll pay in time. I couldn't go to New Zealand for one day and feel the Haka spirit. I couldn't. I couldn't. I would have to live in that for some time and it'd have to rub off on me and then I'll come out like, you know? And then even then, because of how I would have learned it based on their tradition, yo, where would I even have the space to do that? You know what I mean? You see it a lot in your fraternities. There's certain fraternity dances that you can't do unless you're in that frat. And dudes to tell you like, yo, what frat you in, like who you pledge to, you know?
Yep.
Don't matter if you white, black, whatever. If you wasn't initiated into that, whatever, you can't do that. Because it comes with how you paid in time. If dance doesn't have to be that strict, but if dance was strict in a level where everything was paid in time, I think the concept of cultural appropriation would disappear. Because
Mm-hmm.
now, from whether you're white, black, whatever, the amount of time you put in, like you would have rekindled your whole self. You wouldn't be seen as a physical thing anymore. Color wouldn't even matter to you because you didn't put so much time into this one culture that now your spirit is the culture.
Well, yeah, it's like the belt system in martial arts, right? Like
Yes.
I feel like we need something like that in street dance, you know. We talk about like, degrees or like certificates, things like that, to say that some way of giving yourself like some way of acknowledging time that you've spent
Mm-hmm.
in this, invested in this, and also to acknowledge the people who came before you, as far as like when
Yo,
you talk
Tylon,
about,
peace, Tylon. That's the
yeah,
homie.
like
That's a big
when
homie,
you
Tylon.
when you when you when you think about like the lineage of the belts as well, you talk about, you always like your sensei, you have a belt under this person, but also
Mm-hmm.
that person is a part of a family lineage that trickles down, who did they train with and who did they train with, so I think that would be something really dope to integrate into the street dance world, because at this point, it really, what we've allowed to happen is kind of the followers, or the likes and the views, and like that's allowing that is what really is dictating the momentum of the culture.
Word. Word. Nah, you're right. I mean, I also feel like it's just the concept of entertainment and going into the pop culture. I mean, one of the leading arguments that used to be in Life Feed was, for certain people, everything was just about being on TV. Everything was about just being behind a dancer. Like a lot of life eaters come up in a community where, they grew up on honey, they grew up on you got served, they grew up on special delivery. A lot of your Puerto Rican girls was watching Taina. You know what I mean? I don't know if y'all know about Taina, but they was watching Taina. Um, so they were brought up in a culture of, I want to be a star one day. I want to see my name in lights. I want to be that big person. I don't want money, nothing. I just want to be that star. And a lot of people generate and develop their life feed for that. You know what I mean? They model themselves and they do all these dance challenges and they post on Instagram every day tone whopping every day to do that, you know, just to get a repost from an artist. You know, that's their
Yeah.
life's goal when it comes
Yeah.
to the dance. And to some people who lived in the culture, you know, it's crazy because Lifey was so much more than that. You know what I mean? But when you look at
Mhm.
when Lifey was so much more than that, you look at what Lifey was. Last time we spoke, I told you about how teams were constructed and CEOs and all that stuff like that. And just off of the positions of the rosters, you already can estimate that there were at least 10 people in each group, right? With those 10 people, you have members and little members or whatever, and you have people that's having these meetings. I'm talking about, we used to meet up in McDonald's and have meetings about who the next people we're going to battle, whatever, right? And we'll do this all just to go to an event and battle each other. But the culture that was generating was that now you got kids that are working on some kind of technique. You know, they're going home and they're practicing a shoe trick, they're working on a combo or whatever. You have people that are creating these chants, like, yo, like I got a new chant. My chant is gonna be like too real, too real, you know, that's culture. You got
Mm.
people that's making beats to match the chants. That's culture. You got people that's dressing a certain way based on their team. That's culture. You know, when Waffle first came out, they used to rock the snapback fitteds with the wrestling belts. They used to glue, Jono used to glue the wrestling belts on the hat, and then they'll all have a Waffle shirt with the name. That's culture.
That's
Everybody
tough.
started doing that. You know what I mean? But that was something that was specific to our community and culture when we were just living it. It wasn't about putting it somewhere where everybody can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the narrative of like your dance style isn't big if everybody in the world isn't doing it, or your dance style isn't dope unless everybody's practicing it, or your dance style isn't cool unless it's winning battles or it's whatever, whatever. I even had that mentality at a point where I felt like I needed to put Lifey or show how serious Lifey was. I would enter the Just a Booze and whatever. But ultimately I realized like, damn, like I was living something that was authentic to me. You know, this shit don't need to be sold anywhere, you know? And if I do travel the world and teach it or make money off of it, it's just me sharing my experiences and my perspectives that brought me here. So I'm not teaching from the vantage point of you have an obligation to me to be righteous to me and to do things to appease me. No, I'm just sharing my experience with you this one time. If you fuck with it, you'll follow my journey and you'll try to, you know, see where my journey can impact your life. You know, it may lead you to being like, yo, I want to move to New York and train with Ki-nen for a couple of years. But then look what happens. You got to now pay in time. You got to
Yeah.
come to New York. You gotta spend time with me. You got to break bread with me. I always express to you that I love the culture, the pop locking culture in LA, because where all these dudes are traveling the world and teaching popping, there's people like Tabo, there's people like Bob and Andre, there's people like just all those OGs like Pop and Taco that, you know, they may have traveled the world and taught whatever, but when you wanna get that technique, you gotta go to those dudes and pay in time. You know, no
Yeah.
amount of money can give you Bob and Andre Tabo technique. You just gotta pay in time. And the question people ask is, well, damn, why does it take so long? It's because they took the time. So by
Yeah.
them taking the time, they're teaching you something that now you have to pay in time. You can't give Tabo $1 million and expect to dance like Tabo. You
Yeah.
still have to pay in time. You still have to kind of step outside your physical body of being a black or whatever and literally just be a spirit that's paying in time. And a
Yep.
lot of and a lot of dancers need it. And a lot of dancers when they adapt this custom, then dance won't be this thing of like, yo, I'm hip hop because I'm dancing to Tribe Called Quest. That's not paying in time. You know, I'm hip hop because I know that black people get killed every day. That's not paying in time. You know, you can Google that
Yeah.
shit. You
Yeah.
know, have
I
you?
think like for me, the that's the connection that like me and you have and
Mm-hmm.
like different from like doesn't matter if you're a popper or a locker or a breaker, light feet, jooker. There's a certain weeding out process, you know, when you have a certain amount of time that you spent in this culture that it becomes like you know, there's a certain echelon that like you have a mutual respect and you speak a convert like a common language of discipline and like uh a pursuit of excellence, you know. So
Yeah.
like there's almost like an instant bond across the world. It's like when I find somebody that pops or crumps or does life eat, I'm like first off, we got one thing in common, right? This is not a real sought after pursuit in life. Like when you're choosing something to be and when you're in elementary school, this is not on the list, you know.
Dance nah.
So and also like when you're talking about parents, like how many parents support their kids in that pursuit as well, you know? So you
Yo,
know, you automatically like does your society even does your community, does your culture even support you like does the US like support artists? No. So automatically we have a bond of this certain type of struggle that we have. You know, it might not
yeah.
be the same equivalent, but it's we are in the same vicinity as far as what we're up against, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, yo, to be honest, like that's why when you look at street dance, it's rooted in America. It's rooted in Black culture. Like shout outs to all, like we got to give our respects due to a lot of the people before us that were going through whatever type of oppression in their neighborhoods and came up with these dance forms to, let's be honest, not survive oppression, but to go in a space where they feel most at peace, you know, which was their imaginations. You
Yep.
know, that's all these dudes did.
Yep.
Nobody ever like you can ask a lot of dudes like, yeah, you know, I may have pop locked for the Black Panther Party. Like I remember hearing about like, you know, the original Bay Area dudes, like they used to pop for the
Black
Black Panther
black
Party.
resurgence, yeah,
Right,
black
the Black
resurgence, yeah.
Resurgence. But when they're making their routines, there's a lot of imagination involved. So they still have to go into a state of mind where they're escaping the real world. So I give a lot of love to those Black people and those Black and brown people that took the time to sit in their imaginations and then come out with this thing for us generations to now pick up. But a lot of those dudes, what they ultimately realized was that, yo, my imagination is a lot better than this real world, yo. Fuck this shit. I'm staying in
For
my
real.
imagination forever. When you see dudes draw, people when they watch like real life paintings of like something that looks like it's so real that it's actually in front of you, they watch it and go, "Oh, that's so real." But
Yeah.
yo, you look at something that Basquiat drew, it's like, yo, where your head at, bro? Because
Yeah.
it takes you in another place. And those are the things that like it's like people may not want to agree with this, but as street dancers, that's where we're at, yo. Our warm place is not the unity of everybody that are our warm place is our imagination. Where we feel most at peace as dancers is when we're in here and we're creating some shit, when we're inspired. So if that's the driving force to our existence in this culture, that's what I feel like we should invest in. Now, if you don't want to invest in that, or if you want to use that imagination to now propel and talk about topics of the world, cool. But at the same time, we're all moving like this. So it's all good. You know, all I say is that forcing your ideals on somebody that may not have came up in the same thing as you is trying to make people all gray. And the
Yep.
world can't all be gray. I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. Like I grew up in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, like right off the cusp of Brownsville. You're not telling me about like, you know what I mean? Like dudes dying every day. You know what I mean? People killing each other every day. And you ask, oh, well, you know, it's oppression. Yeah, it's oppression, but it's not just oppression with cops killing people. Yo, we used to wake up in the morning and eat bacon, egg, and cheeses every morning. Imagine having a greasy ass bacon, egg, and cheese in your stomach at like 7:30 with some Skittles, some Mike and Ike's, Arizona, and you telling me, and then I gotta go to school and fucking do language arts or some shit like that. You think I'm not going to fight at the end of the day?
Oh my God.
I'm like, yo, miss, whatever. I gotta go to the bathroom. No, I'm tight. I'm like, yo, son. Then for lunch I get a hero roll with some like ragu pasta and some cheese melted, and I eat that shit with a chocolate milk. I still can't go to the bathroom next period. Then I leave school and I go to the Chinese store and get pork fried chicken fried rice. And
Yeah, man.
you think I'm not gonna go to the park and shoot somebody? Yo, my whole shit is fucked up. You know what I mean? Like we
Bro,
came
I'm
up.
telling you, I used to get $2 every day from my mom. Yo, I would I would starve myself to, well, sometimes I'd get $3, but then I would go, they used to have these big ass Otis Spunkmeyer cookies that they had, like, and they were 50 cents hot, bro, at snack time. Oh, let me get two of those. Then I just wait till after school. Maybe I get a bag of Doritos. After school, I walk over, get some
Oh,
French fries, you know, like,
bro, you get the French fries, like, yo, what you want on it? Let me get hot sauce, ketchup, barbecue sauce. Just,
yo, I got
yo,
that
yo,
seasoned salt, bro. Woo!
yo, your French fries used to look like they had blood all over them. Yo, you just eating that shit, yo. You know,
But yeah, man, I think, you know, that's something that really I was so passionate about a few years ago was the food system, you know, and nutrition in general. You know,
yeah.
I really studied that in like because my psychology degree gave me the ability to read research, but so I started to read all this nutrition research, and then um, you know, there was this guy, what's his name? Ron Finley, right? So he was this guy. My professor was like um, Erica Waldman. She was like a huge inspiration to me, but she wrote a book living off different national parks throughout the U.S. just off pure foraging. So
Mhm.
she would forage all her food, and so she was heavy in the food system. So I would just be chopping it up with her all the time. Then there was this guy named Ron Finley who was growing. He would grow gardens. You know, that little meridian where the sidewalk and the grass is. You know,
Uh-huh.
right by the street. He was turning all those into food gardens in the hood,
Mm,
like South Central. And I was like, man, that is. I went up to the mountains. I'm looking over LA, and I'm like, you know, all these plants. I'm looking at all the greenery. The whole city is trees and lawns, and I'm like, none of these grow fruit. Absolutely none
mm.
of these grow food. Like, yet when you go to the hood, what do you have? It's just liquor stores. Like, what is the available food? Those like cacahuetes, the peanut
Right.
butter, like Japanese peanuts, and there's the Doritos, and then there's like
Hot
maybe,
Cheetos,
yeah,
Fritos.
just garbage,
Yo,
man.
dog.
It's like then it's
Yo,
like
and don't
the whole system's like just there's no option. There's not even an option to get a healthy like something that grows out of the ground, you know?
yeah, people aren't prepared to even like be equipped to make a change in their life. And that's my whole point. Is just that like when I think about all the things that people are going through right now and where their minds are at, like I'm considering all those factors and going, well, let's lean towards things that evolve us from this. Like, yo, I used to enjoy my bacon, egg, and cheeses every day. Don't get me wrong. It was fucking me up, but I was like, what? You know what I mean? But at the same
Yep.
time, when I started to get knowledge on certain things, I was like, damn, well, well, what if this lifestyle choice was different? And I remember even like we went to certain places and ate different food, but even that now for me, I don't think I would go back and eat again. But the quality of like, that chicharron de pollo or the quality of that apple
Mhm.
turkey, like there was some
Don't tell
love
me
in
about
that.
that, bro. Don't remind me about that. I'm hungry.
There was love in that, you know what I mean? And that type of food now nurtures people and now brings people to be able to do better things. But I think when you look at the root of who was starting a lot of those things, they were debunking a lot. I mean, even aside, because the whole point is just to say that we all come from different backgrounds and upbringing. So to try to make us all gray is almost near to impossible, and it's almost dogmatic in a way. But
Yeah.
I think our differences kind of make beauty of it because yo, in LA, I think when I look in Los Angeles, all the clear skies and like trees and everything and the sun, I can understand why people on a dancer level were able to have so much control and technique because they're living in such a common environment. The population is not that big. Everybody's kind of widespread. So to train and say, yo, I'm gonna give 6 hours or 3 hours into practice, like there's a clarity for that. Whereas in New York, everything is the next stop is gas, everything, da da da. New York is like this.
Yeah,
So our
yeah.
styles, you look at our styles, like when you see dudes pop lock, everything is,
Yeah.
dudes is on edge. You know what I mean? We see
Yeah,
dudes
yeah.
b-boy, it's on edge. And those things kind of make up why we are so unique. But then when we meet them in the middle, we start to get different perspectives because now you see b-boys on the West Coast. That shit looks crazy. You know what I mean? You see the concept of flexing and like the way flexing kind of doubled down in Brooklyn. Because if you look at especially Flatbush, Brooklyn, as far as reggae culture, reggae music is so like a boom, a don't, a don't. One thing about Brooklyn as opposed to Manhattan is that there's always a bounce, you know, and there's
Mm.
always like a sway in Brooklyn. Brooklyn never seems fast paced. So to think about how Flexus took that energy of like their streets and the violence that they seen and kind of like held it here and just like flexed out of it and came up with that different that sense of movement. Yo, all these things make our life experiences unique, but then we all come into this one culture and share those experiences and we're going like this. You know what I mean? To me,
Yeah.
like if we focus more on where we're going based on where we came from, we'll make a lot more progress in the financial area, of course, but just more in the cultural area where we're talking about appropriation, there'll be no space for people who didn't do time in that or live that to appropriate because it's so finite, it's so strong. You know, the essence of it is paid in time. So now you can't go back on the time you paid. You can never get 10 years back. You how long have you been popping as far as like taking it like seriously if you can think about it?
Well, it's been it was September 2009, so it's like 10 and a half years.
Right, yo, you can never get those you can never get those 10 years back, bro, to be like I'm gonna invest in like a law degree. You know, you're a popper now. You might as well pop for your life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And and to me, dudes who had did that time, if they now teach that same time, then now you're creating a culture of people who constantly pay and contribute to time. That's culture. That's culture. That's how societies are built. That's how nations are built. You know, nations aren't built off of people harboring over the same cycle of oppression over and over and over again. The reason why that seems like that's a thing is because America makes it that, you know, but you ask any other country when it came to revolution went this long. And then we had a different, whatever, different outcome. The revolution went this long, you know.
Yeah.
To me, the history of Grenada is the funniest because that's my culture. Yo, straight up and down. The Dutch Grenada was an island that was ran by the Arawaks and the Sibonis, right? Arawaks, Sibonis, they're living chilling. Kalinagos come, they kill all the men, keep the women, procreate with the women. They kill all the men, keep the women and the children, procreate with them, create a new society, set up islands, set up divisions in each island, whether it be Barbados, Guyana, whatever. And now Kalinagos has this big place. They start doing cultural diffusion. They start inviting people from Hindustan over to trade spices because Grenada is known as a spice island, but a lot of natural spices are not native there. It took a lot of people to come there and bring those spices. You started getting people bringing different religions there, like the nuns from the Dutch nuns and stuff like that. So you can imagine this indigenous Kalinagos culture sitting here chilling, these Dutch nuns sitting here chilling, these Spaniards sitting here chilling. But in history, they tell you no, people came and invaded. Nah, these dudes are really civilized. The Dutch nuns later went and was like, yo, the Spaniards are plotting against you guys to overthrow you guys. Yo, the first time you can look this up. The first time the Spaniards came to invade and go against the Kalinagos, yo, those dudes got bodied. I'm talking about body. Like they were not ready for that type of warfare. And it was so graphic that the Spaniards and the English, they went back to the Queen and they said, yo, these people are so savage. They were hurting us. They ate us, you know? And that's how you get the term Carib for Caribbean or cannibal, you know? And then they started naming that whole area the Caribbean. So now dudes is going back there. And then now they're like, okay, if we're going to go back there, we need to wipe out that force, you know, that's over here moving crazy with us. So what do? They bring the Anglican Church. Fight, 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 fight. Anglican Church lose. They bring the French with the Catholic Church. The Catholic dudes run the Kalinagos all the way to a precipice called Leapers Hill. Well, now they call Leapers Hill. Instead of the Kalinagos surrendering, they jumped off the cliff and killed themselves because they didn't want to surrender to the French. So the French now named that place Sauterres for to jump, Leapers Hill. The French go, okay, now we're going to make our own society. Then they do the whole West African, bringing the slaves over, whatever. But then the British come and they like, you know what? We want this land. The British comes, takes over the French. Now we run the slaves. The French is like, nah, we come. French come, take over the Brits. The British come again, take over the French. Now you got this dude named Julius Fedon, who is like, yo, I'm a Frenchman and I'm a slave with these Africans. So now the Africans, they're like, yo, we slaves and you a white dude, you slave too. So Julius Fedon is like, yo, we got to get these Brits, yo, we got to go. They start one of the first biggest Grenadian revolutions. Brits lose. The Brits lose. French come back in power. Brits get back in power. And then eventually the British go, yo, we've been fighting forever, yo. Like, what the fuck? For this little ass island? Like, yo, give these dudes their land back, man. We're tired of this, you know?
Yeah.
But if you see in that period of time how many wars were fought. You know what I mean? Like,
What year was that? Do you know what year the British just popped out?
when they gave up, I want to say between the 17th. I don't know verbatim, but I want to say between the 17th and 1500s. But the early 1600s, I want to say 1692 is when it first sparked off as far as the whole Leap of Sail thing. You know,
Oh shit.
but
A while back, yeah.
yeah, but the thing about Grenada is just that when it comes in the concept of revolution or revolting, like it's so fast, and you see that in a lot of nations. It's so fast. It's not this thing that's like prolonged for decades where like 20 years later we're still talking about injustice on a landmass. Like dudes get fed up from the jump and be like, nah, we're gonna take action. So you start to see that when you look back at America, you like, damn, like they're almost profiting off of you being so revolutionary. You know what I mean? Because nobody's revolution is in private. It's all on Facebook. It's all through memes and like quotes and people in their cars talking about what people should do to make the world a better place. So everybody who you're going against is watching you. Like we just talked about, all the protests are, you got to get a permit. You can't just walk the streets. And if you do, you get arrested by policy enforcers who are not there to be nice to you. They're there to enforce policy. You know what I mean? They're programmed. They get trained. They go to trainings to enforce policy. No matter who mother, sister, daughter you got that has an auntie or whatever in the police force, they have to enforce policy. And if they don't get the work of killing people. They work at the fucking desk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And check things in. So thinking about the out world, right? Like what's going on in America, and then think about what we have in the dance world. Do we have policy enforcers in the dance world? Not so much. Do people in the dance world get affected by policy enforcers? Yes, they do. Do people in the dance world get affected by racism? Yes, they do. But at the end of the day, where do we always go back to? We go back to the dance community. So it's like this has now become the hub where we can feel okay. So again, like it's just amazing to see at this point, now that we have the clarity, because of how much the worlds have been connecting as far as dance through social media or whatever and through events. Now is the time for us to really be like, okay, what's my purpose in this whole thing? What am I contributing to that people get to see? And then we go about executing that. But ultimately, it's going to have the dance world go like this, you know, versus how do we make the dance world this one idealistic entity? To me, it's never going to happen. And if it does, we'll be now in some religious kind of whatever, where it's like, if you don't do this, you're not this. And it's almost hypocritical because then as you keep running on the line, you have to keep modifying yourself, which is a dope thing. But if you're modifying yourself to contribute to an ideal and not really to propel yourself forward, then ultimately you're just doing insanity. You're going in a cycle, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of, you know, a lot of it is personal. I feel like it's personal issues, you know, that are being masked behind bigger movements, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily, you know, like obviously there are issues, but as far as the narratives that are being portrayed, it is also a reflection of a personal psychology, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I have no issue with people like voicing themselves, like freedom of speech, right? Like the issue becomes when you start to use a pedestal or self-righteousness to shut other people out, to shut other people up. Because what a community should be is discussion. It should be people coming to the table to break bread, to really discuss these topics. If it's really important to you, like let's talk about it.
Right.
I want to learn your perspective. I want to learn about this sort of stuff, you know. And then we can figure out where to go from there. But if not, like, let's just keep building forward. Like,
Yeah,
let's grow this thing, you know, together.
if it's not
Um,
important, you know.
yeah, if
Yo,
it's not
the
important.
people from Slovakia were the original slaves, the Slavics. That's where the word comes from, you know. Where's the justice for them for being slave? Like a lot of their ancestors are slaves, you know. If I was to
Mhm.
look at a descendant from Slovakia and be like, your people enslaved us, they'll be like, yo, what the fuck you talking about? You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Just because they got a white skin, I'm just automatically gonna assume. You know, some people don't even look at biology, yo. Like dudes don't even know how to read facial structure to even tell what nationality people are. They just see light skin white, black skin black. So I
yeah,
think if we're gonna have these topics, I would say let's have these topics from a real educated standpoint. It can't be off of emotion. Can't be off
yeah.
of just what America has showed you. Has to be on a global scale and a more historical scale.
Well, it's like for me, it's like, okay, let's look at my heredity, right? Like, let's look at my actual genealogy. Like, let's look at my genes and see where I'm from. But how much, like, okay, did the 3% of this and the 5% of that, did that affect who my did affect Daniel D Soul? Did it affect who I am today? You know, possibly. You know, like, do I need a 23 and me to really know who I am?
Yeah. And them
To
shits be
really,
lying to you.
yeah, just to define my reality, right? Because like so much of our reality is based off of our own perception. The world reflects an internal world, you know. It's like we have to like when we talk about mental practice, it's like really trying to create these mental tools that we can use to manipulate how we perceive things. And I
Yeah.
think that's super important. Is like, you know, we talk about optimism or pessimism. I mean, they're real things, but like also the deeper mental tools, like also knowing your own propensity to think of things in certain ways, like what makes you who you are. You know,
Yeah.
like for me, breaking down things or being analytical is also like a real reflection of how I was brought up. You know, it
Right.
wasn't so emotionally based. It was more like, let's think about this like a chess game, or like let's think about this real logically, opposed to like a feeling, or you know, that was passed on to me through my parents. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
had nothing. It had nothing to do with like the fact that they were white or Mexican or nothing. You know, it was the way they were brought up. You know, so a lot of
Yeah.
the stuff. How much are we responsible for? You know, our race is systematically, like for example, it our conditioning can be related to how we're perceived by other people,
Mm-hmm.
100%. But also our conditioning is also a reflection of our ability, our education on how to process the reality that we're living.
Yo, dude. Honestly, when you think about tutting, when you hear the word tut, you think of this instead of thinking about King Tutankhamun, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And that was where the word tut come from. And then what's even more funny is that we associate Tut with his name, but you're really associating it with the hieroglyphs that other people drew. So it's like you're just taking history and going Tut. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so it's like we're all hypocritical to a degree in a way.
yeah,
And honestly, like when you think about it from that level, it's like, all right, let's figure out what we can. Ultimately, people really just need to figure out what they came here to do, you know,
yeah,
and whatever that is, do that. But
yeah,
if what you came here to do is to now chastise other people for what they came here to do, there's a word for that now. It's called insanity. You know what I mean? Like when you do things in a cycle, you know, that's insanity. You're expecting a different result, but you keep getting the same thing over and over and over. When we used to hear OGs talk about, yo, the culture's fucked up, nobody's original, everybody's offbeat. But everybody who they're talking about being offbeat is the same people they're teaching. That's insanity, bro.
yeah.
That's insanity. There's no way me and you can be teachers and we're teaching mad people. Then we watch them battle and be like, yo, all y'all offbeat. I just
Yeah.
taught. They're gonna look at us like, yo, you taught us. What the fuck? You know what I mean? That's insanity, bro. There's something that
Yeah.
we're missing, and I feel like, to me, it comes with finding out what our purpose is. That's why. That's why I like. I'm thankful for the fact that, to me, it was wrong, but I'm thankful for the fact that like b-boys and old school poppers and stuff used to shit on Life Feet, because for me, it helped me realize what it is that I wanted to figure out with my dance, you know? And it made me want to research dance and connect the pieces so that instead of meeting them with emotion, like, yo, you don't like my style because you don't understand it, so I'm gonna dance how I want because you don't care. I met dancers with scholarship. Like, I know about the history of popping. I mean, I pop myself, but I know about the history. I know about the history of b-boy. I know about the history of jazz, tap dancing, hoof, and all that stuff like that. So you can't touch me on that knowledge. And I know the history on Life Feet. What do you know about Life Feet that can make you be able to make your statements? And then a lot of dudes who are quote unquote OGs, now they just got to get with it and be like, okay, I like Life Feet now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
because I removed the emotions from it and I understood it for what it was. If people move the emotions from things, not to say not to have emotions, but if you remove the emotions, now you're generating more thought and understanding to be able to present it and project yourself and articulate yourself where things make sense from a vantage point that's not emotional, that has no emotionalism attached to it, or a lesser degree of emotionalism, you know?
Yeah, to acknowledge like the emotions that you feel is important. Like there's a difference between feeling your emotion and acknowledging your feeling, right? So like the ability, the reactions that we have, those are conditioned into us, you know?
Right.
Like if somebody hits me in the face, the reaction that I have is going to be conditioned. But the thought that comes like, okay, why do I want to react that way, requires me to pull back and look at the person that's feeling these emotions, you know.
Right.
It's like a fractal layer of thought that you can think about the person that's feeling, and you can also think about the person that's thinking.
Yeah,
So
man.
you have these different layers of thought, but really that requires usually a breath, right? Like
Yeah.
when they say take chill, take a breath, like that's real. If
Yo.
you can
Yeah,
really
man.
start to zoom out of your experience, that immediacy, and then really start to break down what it is that you truly want out of this situation, and like reorganize your mind to what you value. And if you don't value something, that's something you got to cultivate away before you go out into the world and get
Hmm.
hit with all the stimulus, you know?
Yo, breathing makes you so present, man. Breathing makes you so present that it's crazy like how much breathing like impacts you that way. And ultimately, to kind of put a pin on that topic, because like, again, this is other people's ideals. Like, I'm not against them, especially when it comes to like guest culture and stuff like that. Like, I'm not against like talking and addressing issues when they matter. You know what I mean? But if the issues are not met with facts that are beyond just the United States Corporation of America and what you're watching on YouTube and the memes that you're reading and stuff like that, then the conversation can't be had. But to put a pin on that, like, I'm just ultimately, again, so thankful for dance. And I think that's the progressive nature of what we have here. Like, we're movement artists that get to talk and share and do movement. We get to profit off of it, but not just profit off of it in money. We get to profit off of it with time and experience. How many of your friends, have been to the places you've been for dance, and not really so much for dance in terms of making money, but in terms of dance of getting to see what another culture is outside of California.
Yeah.
That's what movement arts gave you, and that's what movement arts blessed me with. That's what movement arts blessed a lot of dancers with. And me, I'm just mad thankful for that, yo, because ultimately it's what kind of, beyond imagination and besides beyond creativity, that's another thing that kind of drives the reason why I still do this. Is like, damn, like, I've made so much good experiences with people around the world, like, it's
Yeah.
magnificent.
Yeah, man. For me, it's like that's another thing that I would love to talk about is kind of like this, you know, where do we see each other? Like where do we see ourselves going in the future? And also like when we talk about the value of dance, like I think about it like this. When somebody comes to a workshop, or somebody, they're interested in street dance, and I go, look, you could pay a lot of money to learn a certain language, right? Like Spanish, French, whatever, Vietnamese, Chinese, and all those things are very useful for unlocking a culture, right? But then when you talk about movement arts, you're talking about learning. I could do this like basically every country in the world, and I could probably find a roof to sleep under at night. You know, if you're a kind person and the ability to create conversation with just illusion, people people will open like they'll open themselves up to you in a different way. So you're learning a language of the world that you can travel with throughout your life. You can create conversations, you'll make friends. Like there's no way of truly putting a value on that.
Yo, dog, for real. I mean, yo, I love like hotels and like having my own space when like I travel for dance, like just to be like, comfortable. But I've also equally appreciated like when people are like, yo, I just got my crib, you can sleep in this room and be able to go to their crib and they're like, yo, I made a meal for you, and you guys eat
Yeah,
that meal together and you talk. And it's like, yeah, man, in my country this, yeah, in my country that. And it's like, wow, like
yeah,
for real. And this used to happen, yo, low key for me. This used to happen even back in the lifey days. I can honestly say that like when I was doing lifey, it was like I was in a whole nother country, bro. Like being in somebody else's crib and us talking about lifey, labbing till our socks get dirty, like just mad shoe tricks. You feel like you're outside of the comfort of your home or your borough. And yo, dude, we used to come out of events, stay on 42nd Street till like 3 in the morning, and dudes may all just sit there like, yo, what y'all want to do? Yo, let's go to Far Rock Beach. And we all get on the A train and just go all the way to Far Rock Beach. And dudes would be like, yo, look at this. They go on top of like a little cliff and then jump off into the water. They're like, yo, he's wilding. You know what I mean? Like, that's yo, the
that's
beauty of
memory.
that, bro. And yo, most of us back then, dude, we have no money. Matter of fact, our economic mindset was so retarded. We would literally dance on the train, hustle, make all this money, and buy clothes, and then still hop the train. Never bought a Metro card. Dudes would come out the train with $100 in an hour, buy mad Taco Bell, mad Domino's, hop the train, and still buy chicken spot at the crib. Like nobody ever thought, like, yo, I'm gonna buy a Metro card because the culture was just a hop. It's like, yo, everybody
Yeah,
hopping, fuck it, we hopping. So
yep,
you think about all these things and you just be like so like how beautiful it is, but then you start to think about now we have a privilege. Because check this out. I remember you was talking about your friend smoking weed and the cop was paying no mind to it. Yo, dude, on 14th Street, on Union Square, there's a police station right there. Dudes have gotten locked up hopping a train, but I can honestly tell you, there have been many more times where police will be right there, and if you was a light feeder with a spray ground bag, whatever, you hop, dudes will be like, oh, he's about to just hustle.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
cops will start to associate you with just this kid making money. It's like, you know what, fuck it. He's
yeah,
making his money. Cop will be on the train, see you dance on the train, be like, yo, look, Now don't get me wrong, there were people that got arrested and there were people that would whatever. But I personally like to highlight the facts where what you did as a culture gave you privileges or advantages where you were now outside of the norm in society.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
been I've been to college dorms and shit, just talking with people because I was dancing in the street. Like, yo, come to my crib. I'd be like, what?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
100%, man. Like there's so many times where like whether I got it like there was two times where I was like in the hood of Long Beach, like where I first learned Homeland, and I was like this is the cuts, right? Like Cambodians is also like the edge of where like, you know, Snoop is from and all that,
word.
it's crazy over there. It's wild. I got pulled over twice. They wanted to search my car, right? Like, what's this white boy doing down in this neighborhood? There's only one reason, it's to sell drugs, right?
Mm.
So they come over, they ask me, what you doing down here? I was like, well, I go pop at this cultural center down the street at MacArthur Park, and they were like, okay, they're like, let me see, and I was like, all right,
Shit.
I was like, can I turn on some music? And I was like, boom. I turn on the music, the lights are flashing. This happened twice, yo. And
Yo,
the second time it happened was so funny because I was like, this again, for real? But the first time I was like, the lights are going and shit. I'm on the side of the fucking street in the ghetto, and I'm like fucking bang, bang, bang. And then I look at them and they're like, I have a good night.
yo, yo. There was a building that we used to call the Air Temple in on Crown Heights on Empire Boulevard, right? It was like this little like Utica Avenue went down like on a slant, and then like the other hill went down this way. And on Empire Boulevard, it was like a lot of ex shota dancers, like a lot of ex dancehall dancers, reconnection. And most of those dudes, like they stopped dancing, they became Crips. So it was like a mad loped out over there. And there was a crew called Avatars that was like a side crew to like my crew, Team Rocket, like and just us brothers. We used to lab together, and we used to go into the apartment buildings in the Air Temple and lab. But like, let's say somebody from another like Lifey crew, whatever, wanted to train, like, yo, want to meet up with you? Like, all right, meet me at the corner on Empire, and I'll meet you at the end of the block. Because dudes, we didn't have like the whole GPS, so you have to find people and so you can see somebody's address. So there was numerous amount of times, and it almost became a rule where like the lokes would be right by the chicken spot, just chilling like this, and you'll see like a random Lifey kid waiting, like, and the Crips would be like, "Yo, what you doing here?" It's like, "Oh, I'm coming to lab in the Air Temple." It's like, "Oh, you Lifey?" It's like, "Yeah." It's like, "All right, let me see your WAP." It's like, "What?" It's like, you can't dance here if you don't got a wavy ass WAP." And you would literally have to be like, do your WAP. And if that shit not spanky, like you would like you can't get on the block. And
Yeah.
I've seen numerous of times like kids have to pull out their best WAP. Like they'll be like, let me see your WAP. And dudes will just do like a regular 1-2 WAP. They think they just get practice. Like, nah, that shit whack. Let me see some hot shit. Let me see a wavy ass WAP. You have to put mad moves in your shit just to get and then they're like, oh, this nigga nice. Yo, nah, you come through. But they were guarding that block. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't lab in the Air Temple if you didn't have that type of WAP. Like you have to have like that wavy ass WAP, what they call rev up now.
Okay.
But you have to have a wavy WAP to be able to go in there. And just that culture of like being able to get access to neighborhoods from just being nice at something was crazy. I used to be able to dance in the craziest places in the Bronx, Harlem, East New York, Brownsville, just off of my skills. I remember Polo Grounds is probably one of the most dangerous areas in Harlem. And I remember I walked right through Polo Grounds with certain light feeders just because I was a light feeder and dudes ain't do nothing to me because I was with a certain circle of people.
Yeah.
And because they understand, like, now these dudes are here to dance, and subconsciously they're like, yo, they're here to elevate themselves. Like, who am I as a street dude, or even a cop? Who am I as a cop to hold that down? Sometimes internally, no matter what programming we come up with, our spirit sometimes just let nature take its course to a degree, and we kind of just be like, you know what? Let it happen. It happens even in the meals. We were just talking about how we used to eat fucked up food. But yo, think about that day when you were starving and your man's like, yo, I got a piece of this ham sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, it may have been the most unhealthiest thing ever, but in that moment, it was the most nourishing thing you ate because the person handed you that with some love. Like,
Yep.
I used to date girls in high school, and like, if my ex had $1, like we both had 50 cents and we both got a bag of Doritos 3D, and we was just like, yo, that shit was the best shit ever, dog. You know what I mean?
The Doritos 3D.
Yo, $3.
The texture of that shit, like
Yo,
that
that shit
pop.
just disappear. Yo, dude, I'm talking about like you got $4 and two McGriddles special, two McGriddles and a smoothie special. And that shit will be the best McGriddle you ever ate because it was with so much love that like everything that the world contributed to making that whatever it is was just erased. It was just love in your hand at that point, or
Yep.
understanding in your hand. And I think us as dancers and even artists, we have the power to generate and control that. You meet somebody with love, the only way they're going to respond back in a way that's not what you want is if they're really dealing with something in themselves and they just want to lash out on you. But naturally, they're going to come back with love. So the
Yeah.
cops is like, yo, let me see you pop then. You know what I mean? They could have easily
Yeah.
just arrested you, but they were kind of like, yo, let me see you pop then, yo. Where you at? Because
Yeah.
their nature, how you carried yourself. But if you was there like, yo, what the fuck, man? Da, 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 da. They probably still would have been like, yo, let me see you pop them. But 9 times out of 10, the programming would have switched. Okay, policy enforcer, kind of like the Terminator, you know,
Yeah.
Terminator 1.
Well, honestly, after that PTSD, like, you know, with the incident with the cops, like, you know, anytime I dealt with the cop, it was like, you know, they pulled me over, I had my hands out the window like immediately, you know, like I was like, yeah, I would just have my hands hanging out the window. I'd turn the car off, hands out the window, you know. How you doing, officer? You know, like I knew the routine. I was just like, all right, you know, no questions. And from the get-go, it was kind of like, even though I really despised them after what they did to me, it was kind of like, I knew the enforcement, you know, I knew they were like
Hmm.
robots in a way, you know. So I
Yeah.
was just like, let me just give them nothing to pick about, you know. So I just like follow all the rules, hands out the window, you know, talk to them respectfully, because if you after a while you start to empathize with them, you know, you just go like, dude, these guys are everybody's worst day, you know, for the most part. You're dealing with everybody, like you become their worst day.
And
So imagine
yo,
you do that every single day, is
and
you're
most of
dealing.
them, and most of them are not even conscious of it. Like they're programmed with all that protocol, all that policy that they're just literally machines,
Yeah,
you know?
it's crazy, man. It's really crazy, man. So when you think about the future of dance, like,
Mm,
and you know, obviously we have like real internal value of what we do, and the community that we create, the friends we make, and all that. What do you see what's next, like, for the street dance world, especially in times like this where, you know, travel is not,
yeah.
you can talk about the immediate future where travel is kind of uncertain,
Hmm.
but also, you know, entertainment's not going either, you know,
Yeah.
there's no movies or commercials being made, all that sort of stuff. Where do you see it short term, and then also like what would you want to be long term?
Right. Short term, I actually see that where the dance world is going, a lot of people are starting to appreciate the art of movement and like what we're doing, the art of speaking about dance. Because I think when things were kind of clear and there was no COVID-19, a lot of us were just like taking dance for granted. You know, we just like, okay, yeah, you know, I'm gonna go to this jam today. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about dance today, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But now, like, we're really realizing, like, yo, I really love this. This is all I have. So short term, I'm actually seeing that a new mentality is gonna birth out of it for street dance for sure. Long term, I see dance going in a place where now we're getting back to just what movement arts were, you know, collectives and collectives coming together to express those art forms, you know. I was just watching with my lady the other not too long ago, the Sabrina Teenage Witch series,
Oh
and
yeah.
and in that series, like they talk about like witches and warlocks from all over the world and the different degrees of those witches and warlocks based on their specific coven. But then they also talk about like other people who may not be witches or warlocks, but they also deal in the realms of magic, like shamans or voodoo practitioners and stuff like that. And ultimately, they all have different perspectives, but they come together in this show and kind of trade off, whether it be competitively, like, oh, your voodoo is not better than my whatever, or collectively, let's take our perspectives and use it to go against this current enemy. I can see dance now getting to a point where that's going to be the narrative, you know, where it's not so much about this thing of like, what can we do to be acceptable to the mainstream, but more so, how can we continue to push these arts forward for future generations because they are important in today's time as far as like how they stimulate us mentally, physically, and spiritually. Little Puma
Yeah.
just said, "Why do you think there is not much crew teams anymore?" Ooh, I mean, I got an answer for that, but what do you think about it, D? So, like, what?
Well, I've been asked by several crews to join before, but it's like at the same time, I never wanted to divide myself
Right.
more. You know, like I already feel like the street dance culture is something that we need to be working on uniting more.
Hmm.
So in a lot of ways, I just felt like, whether it was a personal thing when I felt like, okay, I'm gonna run under this name now. Do, Personally, does it affect my psychology? Do I start to, you know, kind of distance myself from others?
Mm.
or is this going to help build towards
Right.
a bigger community? It's about to end. I'll hop back on right now.
Bet, bet. Let's do it.